Hey, it's Drybear. Stalker 2 has been out for a couple days, and a lot of people have had their chance to play it, and a ton of discussions are going on right now on whether the game is good, bad, and what needs to be changed about it to make it the best that it can be. So let's dive into what all the discussions are going on right now. Now, the first one to talk about is going to be the economy in Stalker 2. You go and do quests and collect items, and you will get coupons, which you can spend on upgrading gear, and there's a lot more gear upgrading than there was in previous games to make some really awesome combinations. Especially the unique named weapons that you can upgrade have some wild endgame opportunities, which are very cool. But a big point of contention right now for many people in the game is going to be the general cost of buying and repairing gear and keeping it maintained. In many cases, you can have a weapon that is exceptionally difficult to get and then even more difficult to keep repaired with the insane amount of durability loss that it gets. To the point where even if you're being a complete pack mule, like I'm a loot goblin like by trade. I am born, raised, it's in my blood. I have to loot everything. I look for all the loot in the world. And so I'm constantly overburdened, going slow, burning my stamina, dragging everything that I can back to the vendors, selling them, doing side quests, trying to get everything set up so that I can have enough coupons. And even doing that, a lot of the very expensive weapons can be anywhere from 18,000 to plus more just to repair them, and then use them in a single firefight, and you end up burning through 40% of its durability, and you have to go repair it again, which means you're spending all of your earned money on trying to repair weapons and keep them built. And obviously, the longer you go without repairing the weapon, the more often it's going to jam in a fight. And I think this brings up a very interesting discussion around whether GSC should be sticking to their guns on this one. I think that the intensity of Stalker originally was always just the realism, the difficulty, and how harsh the game was on you overall. And this was, you know, a very interesting point of contention for many other companies like FromSoft when they did Demon Souls and Dark Souls, how everyone complained the game was too punishing and too hard and too slow, and they stuck to their guns, and it ended up being the right decision as they ended up making their games harder and harder over time, and people fell in love with it for that. However, a lot of the feedback right now has been around how clunky and overall punishing the game can be in many different aspects. The other point of contention is around the general HP of all of the mutants that you face in the game as well, namely the bloodsuckers, because they're most aggressive and the fastest, the hardest to get away from, outside of some spoilers that I won't spoil in this video. But there's also just plenty of mutants that have just generally incredibly high HP values. You can find tons of mods online that already lower the amount of HP that the mutants have by a significant margin, to the point where they just become a lot more reasonable to fight. But again, is this something that GSC should stick to their guns on and make it as part of, well, you're not supposed to be fighting mutants in an open field. It's better to prepare properly, bring good resources, and use the environment to your advantage, as Ra's al Ghul taught Batman long ago, to make sure that you're constantly fighting them in a situation where you can use space and like the available area to avoid getting hit as you burn ammo. Ammo, especially on the highest difficulty, is very hard to come by in many cases, can be very slow unless you're loot goblining the whole time, and it also takes up weight as well. You'll end up carrying a lot of extra capacity and weight if you're holding on to tons of different ammo types. Now, if you're on PC, there are a ton of mods that you can gain access to. The mod community has been slamming these out constantly, making adjustments to all areas of the game, difficulty of enemies, HP of mutants, the weight distribution of items, and the max carrying capacity, how radiation affects you, how the guns work, how fast you pull up your inventory, like when you pull the bag animation up versus bringing out your PDA. Tons and tons of mods have already been out. Let me know down below if you'd like for me to go through a video going through all the best mods that are available now for Stalker 2 and a quick introduction on how to install them if you're interested in modding the game for yourself, which, by the way, when GSC closed their doors and released their source code, that's how we ended up getting Gamma and Anomaly and things like that, different modded versions of the game that made the game different and had a lot of tweaks for it, which made the game, you know, a little bit more accessible to a lot of people. So let me know if you'd like to see some of that down below, and I'll think about doing a video for that on separately. Now, I think this is actually something that GSC needs to be considering very seriously, and I think it's something that's been solved very elegantly in other games in very simple ways. And I think adding more player choice to allow more options for more people to enjoy the game is going to be good, positive change for Stalkers. So on the topics of the amount of weight that you have in carrying items, the cost of items, both in buying them and also repairing them, as well as the amount of HP HP that the enemies and the mutants have in the game could also be a big factor around the difficulty level. I think even on most difficulties, most of the enemies are difficult to deal with. There's a ton of complaints for it right now. Now, again, I have the rose-tinted glasses. I don't really have any issues with Stalker 2 right now. I'm having fun with it. It's exactly what I was hoping for out of a Stalker game, and I'm not having these issues. But they are widespread enough that it's worth talking about. So how would you go about elegantly solving these problems? For most modern game designs, the best way to do this is to give player choice in the gameplay mechanics that they have available. For example, a great example of this is Elden Ring. Elden Ring doesn't have any difficulty modes in it at all. You can't choose a difficulty when you start the game. However, you can choose how hard you make the game based on your choices in your build and in the game itself. You can, if you'd like to in Elden Ring, go farm a bunch of levels and then get very strong, get a bunch of weapons and upgrade them, and then tackle the bosses and content that you find difficult to make it easier for you. You can essentially create your own difficulty based on what you do in the game. And I think it's what a lot of people are struggling with right now in Stalker 2 is even if you play everything perfectly, you're still, without mods, going to have trouble overcoming the weight distribution, the cost of repairing items over time that break very easily, the day-night cycles that have very oppressive time windows on you, maybe even the visibility of the dark areas in the game, and on top of that, the mutants that, regardless of what difficulty you're on, are going to take a lot of ammo from you. The next topic that's worth talking about is the AI in the game, as well as the introduction or lack thereof of A-Life 2.0. I've mentioned this in previous videos, but A-Life is the name that they gave to the AI system that runs in Stalker that allows the game to feel more alive by giving AI commands and general pathways for AI that is outside of your immediate vicinity so that the world feels more alive. There's a lot of arguments right now that the AI for both the in-game comment in immediate vicinity as well as the A-Life that's supposed to be a new and improved version isn't working as intended. We have this clip from user Arthur Burbridge on Reddit showing the spawning right in front of you. And this is actually a very big complaint for many people in the game right now, that enemies just feel like they're kind of appearing out of nowhere and they don't feel like they're, part of a world that's living and dynamic and breathing. They have responded to this directly, GSC as the developers, saying that there are issues with the spawning, as well as major bugs with A-Life 2.0 that makes it just so they're not working at all, and they are planning to get this hot fixed as soon as possible, along with other issues like the stick drift and other problems with technical issues. This clip comes from user GodJamWell on Reddit as well, and this is one of the A-Life simulations that you may experience in Stalker 2, where two groups of enemies are fighting, and in this case, this happens where you walk up and both of them are green to you, which means that they are not aggressive at all, they're just killing each other, but they also don't really care about your presence at all, which can feel a little weird. There's plenty of clips of this, of players getting near these A-Life outside of your sphere of influence encounters where you just walk by, and all of a sudden these groups are fighting, and you're just kind of a passive observer running by. They don't shoot at you unless you get in the way, and you're just kind of there hanging out. I think these kind of little slip-ups remove you from the immersion of the game, to be sure. The other issue that people are having with Stalker 2 right now is the general visibility during nighttime and in dark or on underground areas that just have very dark aesthetic. They actually have some systems going on. You can tell by the volumes as you walk through volumes. Like if you go inside of an underpass or inside of a building, the darkness will lighten up a little bit so you can see better. But if you're outside of the building looking in through the doorway, it can be impossibly dark inside to the point where you can't even see anything. And the flashlight does help in some cases, but also the game can just be very dark. Some people could chalk this up to just being an aesthetic choice that the art direction of the game calls for. It makes it feel dark and gritty. I actually like the suspense of it, where if you feel like you're just kind of confused and lost and you don't really know what's going on. But some people, especially on TVs, remember I'm playing on a PC with a monitor, TVs in general for consoles tend to be a lot darker and have a lot more issues and variability with brightness, hue, levels and values and things like that make it show darker versus brighter, especially if you have, different TV options that may be like more smart TV level. So let me know what you think about this. Should the game be brightened up so that you can see a little bit better? Should they make adjustments to the HP values of the mutants that you run into? Should they make the repair costs lower and make the costs of buying items lower? Should they add more difficulty options or scaling in the game? And how should they address the outcries and complaints that people have right now? Is this one of those situations, if you were the director on Stalker 2, would you make the call to just muscle through and hopefully people will just learn to love it? Or would you make changes to the game to make it better overall, aside from the obvious of like fixing the stick drift issue, crashes, errors, performance that they're already working on? If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.